Whether on the pages of our favourite DC comics, on TV, in the movies, or in video games, Bruce Wayne's relationships with the many and varied incarnations of Robin have been as complex and dynamic as the legendary duo's title would imply. But what happens when things go wrong? As with any relationship, and especially one as intense and emotionally charged as that of Batman and his Robins, things are not always great, and can often take a turn for the worse. Now, it is more than fair to say that Batman has himself doled out some highly questionable treatment to his crime-fighting charges, but all of the Robins are equally guilty of meting out punishment of every kind to Bruce himself. So, I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are the 10 worst things Robin has ever done to Batman. Number 10. Dick knocks out Bruce. Nightwing, number 30. His identity exposed and his apparent death broadcast to worldwide audiences, Dick Grayson's time as Nightwing was over, to put it mildly. Seeking to profit from the alleged demise of his former student, Batman asked the very much alive Dick Grayson to go undercover and infiltrate the organization known as Spiral. In order to fulfill his mission and discover vital intel on an organization who had been gathering information on the secret identities of superheroes, Dick would need to remain dead, informing no one, not even Alfred, poor guy, of his continued existence. The former Boy Wonder did not take too kindly to this request at all, and a brutal, visceral, unintentionally sexy battle ensued between the Bat and the Bird. After cathartically dispelling God knows how many underlying tensions and declaring to Bruce in no uncertain terms that he is not his boy, Dick doubles his efforts and proceeds to absolutely beat the guano out of Bruce, finally putting the Bat on the mat. Number 9. Damian beheads a criminal. Batman and Son. Bruce and Damian Wayne's relationship is one of constant strain and attrition, with even the best, most amicable periods having once been likely to fall into utter chaos. Damian is now firmly in the good graces of both the Bat and his fans, but when he was first introduced, he wasn't exactly the most likable kid in Gotham. He was a spoiled, arrogant brat raised under the tutelage of the League of Assassins, which meant that, that whole no-killing rule Batman espoused didn't fly with his child. Stealing a sword and some abandoned robes in the Batcave, Damian goes out of his way to willingly behead a small-time Bat villain called Spook. Granted, he was only a kid, and Talia al Ghul isn't exactly the best parental figure you could hope for, but still, there's no ignoring Damian literally murdered a defenseless criminal in his debut arc. Number 8. Dick Grayson gives into Catwoman's flirting. Nightwing, number 52. To say that Bruce and Selina Kyle have a complicated relationship is putting it mildly. Enemies, allies, friends, and lovers, it's hard to unravel the complex strands of their unique bond, and even harder to keep it with the many other romances the pair have when they aren't seeing the other. Bruce's allies, from his Robins to Alfred, know this and often tease him about his tumultuous courtship of Catwoman, which is why the following encounter is all kinds of weird. When Nightwing tries to stop Catwoman stealing the legendary Klopman diamond, they find themselves pinned down by the gunfire of criminals who have also turned up to get their grubby hands on the valuable prize. Forced into this precarious situation, their banter turns into flirting, and the flirting turns into a quick smooch and the promise of something a little bit more risque later on. Selina, it turns out, is trying to make Bruce jealous and trusts that Dick will confess all and fulfill her plan. He doesn't in the end, realizing that Catwoman is only doing it to make Batman jealous, but you just know the thought of actually going along with it all went through his head all the same, the little rascal. Number 7. Jason sleeps with Talia al Ghul. Batman Red Hood, The Lost Days. The Lost Days tells the story of Jason Todd's resurrection and convalescence under the guiding hand of Talia al Ghul. Learning new skills, subscribing to tenets and philosophies which Batman would never teach him, Jason is forged into a living weapon, hell-bent on returning to Gotham to mete out his own brand of vengeance after being groomed by Ra's daughter. During these Lost Days, Jason and Talia become close, and the net result was a famous yet extremely awkward scene of the two of them sleeping together, which is... oh boy, there is a lot to unpack with that. Leaving to one side the fact that Talia is effectively Jason's carer at this point, the physical, emotional, and mental trauma all too real to Jason following his horrific ordeal at the hands of the Joker, and not even mentioning the age gap, Jason should just know you do not get entangled in that old web. It's so weird. Number 6. Damian joins Superman's regime. Injustice, Gods Among Us. The Injustice Gods Among Us video game and comic book series presented DC fans with an alternate reality in which Superman, tricked by the Joker into murdering his pregnant wife Lois Lane and their unborn child, places the world on lockdown and enforces his iron will with all the might at his disposal. This totalitarian regime divides the super community straight down the middle, with heroes and villains alike choosing either to ally themselves with the ruling Kryptonian or to go underground to form a resistance movement headed up by Batman. Damian Wayne, now adopting the mantle and accoutrements of Nightwing, actually turns his back on his father and chooses to join Superman's oppressive regime, having already murdered Dick Grayson. It's the worst thing Damian has ever done by far, and a dark, dark chapter in the history of DC's 52 alternate Earths. Number 5. Dick Grayson becomes the Joker. The Dark Knight strikes again. While Frank Miller's seminal The Dark Knight Returns is widely considered one of the best and most beloved Batman comics of all time, its sequels are not so well thought of, with many not even aware that they even exist. The Dark Knight Strikes Again is the second entry in Miller's series, and in this strange story, Batman and Catgirl, former Robin Carrie Kelly, are off the grid, in a totalitarian police state headed by Lex Luthor. Left embittered and contemptuous of Batman after being unceremoniously fired earlier for cowardice and incompetence, Dick Grayson commits the ultimate act of betrayal by submitting himself to a series of genetic tests and procedures at Lex's hand. When a truly nightmarish imitation of the long-dead Joker announces himself on the scene by stalking and killing older heroes and attempting to murder Batman and Catgirl in the process, Batman recognizes this wraith as none other than his original boy wonder, Dick Grayson, inverting a similar twist from Return of the Joker, by having a Robin willingly adopt the legacy of Gotham's most disturbing criminal, instead of just being brainwashed as he was in that film. Great film, by the way, the best Batman film. You can watch my video about it here. It's really good. Number 4. Tim Drake dishonors Batman's legacy, Titans Tomorrow. In the Titans Tomorrow storyline, the Teen Titans were given a rare glimpse of the future and an insight into their future selves via time travel machinations, which will no doubt be all too familiar to DC Comics fans by now. The Batman of this timeline is not Bruce Wayne, but Tim Drake. Tim Drake is often considered the most, well, considered of all the Robins, displaying intellect and sound judgment where his counterparts have showed arrogance and impetuousness. His Batman, on the other hand, is, it's an entirely different beast. Not only does this Dark Knight use a gun, but he uses the very same gun which killed Thomas and Martha Wayne in Crime Alley all those years ago. Shooting dead Gotham's criminals without remorse, Tim has abandoned the very rationale and level-headedness which marked him out as the most conscientious and studious of the Robins. That one of his surrogate sons is executing criminals at all goes against everything Bruce stood for, but doing so in the cape and cowl as the Dark Knight of that time period is the ultimate betrayal of Batman's legacy. Number 3. Jason steals the wheels off the Batmobile. Batman number 408. Before Crisis on Infinite Earths came around, Jason Todd was kind of lame. He was basically just Dick Grayson 2.0, right on down to the fact that he dyed his hair to look more like Batman's former ward. Realizing that this was, kind of dull, DC chose to shake Jason up as a part of the seismic changes wrought by Crisis on Infinite Earths, reimagining him as a street orphan with an angsty attitude. While fans didn't warm to this more abrasive version of Todd, in hindsight, it's easy to appreciate what DC were doing. And even if Todd isn't one of your favourite Robins today, it's important to recognise the role he played in ensuring all future boy wonders were unique and not just retreads of Grayson. Anyway, with Jason still causing a divisive rep nowadays, it's worth looking back at his first post-Crisis appearance, where he stole the wheels off the Batmobile, and Batman did a terrifying laugh straight after because, he was just kind of done at that point. This interaction would of course lead Bats to adopting Jason, but jacking the Batmobile's wheels? How's Bruce gonna get home now? Number 2. Jason the Red Hood. Batman Under the Hood. In the aftermath of Jason Todd's death at the hands of the Joker in the story that shall not be named because he talked about it so much now, emerging from the pit traumatized and psychologically damaged, Jason takes on the mantle of the Red Hood and returns to Gotham to seek revenge on his former master. Now sporting a red helmet, tactical armor, and a leather jacket because, edgy, this gun-toting vigilante embarks on a campaign of crime and violence to get the attention of the Dark Knight. There's no arguing with the fact that even though Jason's death was Batman's greatest failure, his return as a literal murderer made it all so much worse. And number 1. Turning Batman into a zombie. Deceased. As far as comics that were only made to satisfy an insatiable need to get a pun in the title go, Deceased is by far the best. DC takes the zombie craze and gives it a uniquely DC makeover, as the heroes of the world come to terms with a version of the anti-life equation that has manifested as a techno-organic virus. Just as with Injustice, no hero is safe, and the same sentiment sadly applies to Batman. While the whole world falls into a pit of despair, with heroes chowing down on their friends, the Dark Knight does his best to research the virus. Sadly, both Dick Grayson and Tim Drake have already been infected, and they manage to bite Bats, who then uses Mr. Freeze's suit to slow down his transformation from the world's greatest detective into the world's hungriest cannibal. Sadly, Bats' fate is all but sealed, and Alfred blows him away with a shotgun when he turns feral. And sure, the Robins may not have been able to help themselves in this instance, I guess, but I think we can all agree that turning your mentor into the living undead is by far the worst thing any of them have ever done. And yeah, that was our list. Let me know what you think the worst things the Robins have ever done to Batman are down in the comments below. Once you've done that, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and to head back on over to whatculture.com/comics for more news, lists, and articles like this every day. And I'll see you next time. Bye!